Hi everyone, welcome to another video. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Irit. I am a watercolor and mixed media artist and I live in Austria in Europe. I know a lot of you are new here, so I'm very happy that you're here. My last video, watercolor hacks, tricks that no one is talking about, must have been picked up by some YouTube algorithm, and so it got a lot more views than my videos usually get, and so there are many new people here. Welcome. I'm really glad you're here. On my channel you can find a lot of information about watercolors, as well as many painting videos, which I admit I haven't done a lot of that recently, but I have done dozens and dozens of those in the last years, so you can find those as well if you want to see more, painting and less talking. That's totally cool. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't, then give it a thumbs down. This helps me know what you want to see, and it also helps YouTube introduce my channel to new viewers, so I really appreciate it. Of course, I also invite you to subscribe. I post new videos every week and I would love to have you here. Today's video is 10 things I wish I knew when I just started painting with watercolors. A few words about myself if you don't know me. I have been painting mostly with watercolors for the last 5 years, and I am self-taught. I taught myself and took courses online. My style is very colorful, expressive, almost abstract. I use predominantly watercolors, or let's say watercolors are in all of my paintings, but I also use mixed media, and I love using mixed media with watercolors. If you want to know more about how I got into art, there's a link below where you can read my story. I found my way back to it a little bit later in life. I mean, not so late, but it's all a matter of perspective. But I was definitely thinking, I don't want to wait until I'm retired to paint. And yeah, so if you want to read more about it, go ahead and check the link below. But today's video, I just want to talk about a few things, and I kind of divided it to, the first part is more kind of product based, things I wish I knew about the products of watercolor painting, and then the second half is more of the process of learning and just the philosophy of painting, things I wish I knew that would have saved me a lot of money and a lot of heartache or soul searching or just not having fun. We have here people on all areas of the spectrum, from beginners to people that have been painting for decades, and I just think when you're starting out, especially nowadays with the internet, it can get really overwhelming. So I really hope this video will kind of help you navigate things as you are exploring, as you're starting. Maybe you've been painting for a long time with a different medium and you're now stepping into watercolors, but there's still a lot of things that are new to you. So I hope this video will help you, and let me know in the comments what are the things that you wish you could have told your younger artist self. I'm sure that everyone would love to read and learn, and some mistakes we have to make for ourselves, but then others not necessarily. So it's always good to learn from other people's experience. Okay, so let's start with the more product related things. Okay, the first thing I wish I knew is that there is no standard in the industry of art supplies for a pan size or a brush size. Now with a brush, it's less complicated. Just make sure when you're shopping that you don't just look at the number that it says on the brush, that it's like number 2. Read the millimeters or inches measurements and make sure that is what you need, because sometimes a number 2 brush will be teeny tiny, and then sometimes a number 2 brush will be a huge quill brush. So just make sure you check that. Now with the pans, mostly it's not an issue unless you have a plastic palette that has slots to fit the pans of said brand, which made the palette. And so I always recommend in all of my shopping guides and product recommendations, I always recommend to buy palettes that are not plastic with slots, but rather things like a metal tin that has just like rails where you can insert the pans. Those will accommodate all brands, whereas certain plastic cases, not all of them, but I'll put some images on the screen so you can get an idea of what I mean. They will only fit the brand that they contain, that they're sold with, or, you know, maybe a couple more other brands, but not necessarily all brands. Some make their pans a little bit fatter, just like the edges are a little bit larger. Schminke, for example, Lucas also. Maybe it's a German thing. They like their pans robust. I don't know, but that's why I don't recommend buying a set. If you're starting out, to buy a set that has a plastic case with slots to fit the pans, because you won't really be able to switch around pans in your set. And so if you're using tube paint, this is not really an issue. It's just a different kind of palette. You just squeeze out the paint. But if you're using mostly pans, or if you like to pour your tube paint into pans and then use it in a palette, which is something I like to do, you want to pay attention to that and just don't waste your money, because as you learn, as you grow, as you want to try more things, you want to have that flexibility, and you don't want your products to kind of stand in the way of that. The next thing I want to talk about is to check your pigment information on the paints that you have. And this is kind of connected to a part of, I feel, for a lot of us when we're starting something. We registered, we're taking an online course, we're very excited about it, or we bought a book that we want to try techniques shown in that book. And there's always at the beginning that wonderful and oh so scary sometimes, because you're thinking that's gonna cost me, supplies section. Every artist has their preferred supplies, and it is absolutely essential and understandable to include those sections in any book or course. However, if you already have a basic set of watercolors and some brushes, it's very likely that you won't need to add anything unless it's a specific product that is meant to do something. And many times you will have a different brand from your teacher, and they will tell you which colors they are using, and you will think that you have to buy these colors because you have something different. In most major paint manufacturers, there are basic colors that use usually the same pigments or similar pigments. So, for example, ultramarine blue in every brand will use the same pigment, PB29 in that case, or cobalt blue will be PB28. Now, a little side note on that actually there are pigments that can create a variety of colors. So I'm not really sure, I'm not an expert on pigments and the manufacturing process of watercolors, but if you want to learn a little bit more about just how it can look, how different it can look, I really recommend going to Jane Blandell's website. Beware, you will probably do some damage to your bank account after that. But she always gives also the pigment information, and so you can see that there are pigments that can create a variety of colors, but there are also pigments that are usually used cross brands to create the same paint. And also sometimes brands name their colors in a way that makes you think that this is something unique, when it is actually not. And I think a good example for that is Winsor & Newton, for example. They have their Winsor blue or Winsor purple, I think, and Winsor green. These are very standard colors. If you check the pigment information, you will see that if you have a basic set, you probably already own these colors. So just double check those things before you buy new paint, or go to a site like Jane Blundell's, where she has comparisons of pretty much any watercolor on this planet, and check and see if what you have is really different from what is recommended in this book or course. Also, if you want to know more about my opinions on what should be in your watercolor palette, I have an entire video dedicated to that, so you can check it out here or here. I never know. I think it's here, but you can watch that video more about that. So, okay, the third thing I wish I knew is that I kind of knew this, but I think it took me a long time to really put the effort into finding the right match for me. And that is that paint is very important, to have good paint that you enjoy working with, you like the formula, you like the colors, you like what it does. But brush and paper are also very important, and it's really the combination of those three that kind of takes my experience to the next level. Because when you find a brush that does what you want it to do, that works for your style, that gives you those brush strokes that you want, and when you find that paper that makes granulation look beautiful, or really lets color blend in the way that you like it, or allows for the use of other materials you might want to include in your painting. For me, it's, for example, pastels. It makes a huge difference. It's not just about the paint, it's also about other things. Paper is important, brushes are important, and yeah, don't forget that. And when you're trying different things, don't just, you know, invest in more and more paint, but also try and look for brushes and papers that work for you. One of my suggestions all the time is to try paper packs, paper samples. Places like Jackson's offer them, and you can, for a very low price, you can try different papers, see what you like. Hahnemühle are really clever with this, and they just create a watercolor paper pad with a selection of their range of papers. I actually just got a new one where they added a couple of new papers, and I'm really excited to try it. And this is a great way to try different things and, you know, open your eyes to what might be out there. There are new things all the time. And yeah, it also helps you. You don't have to buy 20 different pads, but you can just try different papers and see what you like. So I always recommend trying paper samples. If you have other artist friends, you can do, you know, swaps and try different papers in that way. Also, of course, different brushes. So don't always focus just on the paint. It seems to be a major focus on YouTube. Just like different paints, trying different paints, getting all the paint, and I totally get that. I also want always to try everything, but that seems to be more of a like interesting topic. I get that, you know, with all the colors, of course, but brushes and papers are as important, especially once you have like good artist grade paint that you love. You're probably not missing out on anything, except maybe a few like special colors. But if you don't have a great paper and a great brush, you're definitely missing out on something that could be, you know, the secret to your joyful watercolor painting experience. The next tip is to keep in mind that there is no such thing as must-have colors in your palette. And when someone, a teacher, an artist, tells you that these are colors you absolutely need to have, try and understand why they're saying this and how they use it, and then you can make a more educated decision if you need this color. If you don't like a certain color, ignore people that tell you that that's a must-have color. There is no such thing. And I promise you that there are amazing artists out there that don't have in their palettes many of those so-called must-have colors. So don't fall into that trap. Really keep your eye on the ball here, and what I consider the eye on the ball when it comes to painting with watercolors is really focusing on what you like and what you enjoy. Okay, the next tip is a really important one, and I really wish someone would have told me this. And this is to keep a reference journal or sketchbook for all of your swatches, color mixes, color stories, techniques, and keep it separate from your other sketchbooks where you're just like painting and trying things. And I really wish I knew that, because I have so many sketchbooks from my first years of painting that I'm not saying they're trash. I mean, I just see it as, you know, like baby steps. It was a stage in my journey, and they're full of, you know, swatches of new palettes that I got or new colors that I got, and then a few paintings like mixed in them. And when I go back and look at that, it doesn't really give me an image of where I was at that time. And also all of those pages of like swatching and trying out new things are kind of lost in those sketchbooks, because I can't keep 10 sketchbooks on hand for reference. So I currently use a little, I think it's called the Fat Book or Log Book or something like this from Cuddy. I got mine from Jackson's. The paper is horrible, and I think someone also agreed with me. You put the paint on, it looks like a huge mess, and then somehow you still like it in the end when it dries. So I don't know what to tell you. You can make these by yourself. You can make a sketchbook by yourself. Just cut watercolor paper and make it into sketchbooks. There are tons of tutorials on YouTube. Or you can just buy a sketchbook and use that. Or you can use that Fat Book from Cuddy, which I don't understand why I love, but I love it. I think because it just has a lot of pages, so I feel like I keep putting stuff in it and it doesn't really seem to fill up. That means it'll probably last me for a long time, and it's very easy to have on hand because it's small. So keep that. This is such an invaluable documentation of your discoveries, your products, what you have, what they do, what, you know, the paints you have, what they do, how they mix, especially if you like to experiment with color mixes, which is what I like to do, and you have a lot of colors that are, you know, unique, that separate, that granulate. You know, sometimes you find that like magic spot of, you know, just adding a little bit of this color to that color, and if you don't document it, you'll just have to keep spending your time, you know, trying to reinvent the wheel when you really don't have to. Also, sometimes I have a busy life, I have young children. Sometimes I just have a few minutes to sit down and paint, and having such a reference book with color palettes that I enjoy, so color combinations that I like to use together, that just saves me preparation for my painting. I can sit down and I can look at that and say, oh, these 5 colors work really well together, and I can just start painting using them. I don't have to think about which colors I want to use. So if you haven't done that yet, start today. I really recommend that, and you will be so happy that you did that, that you kept everything in one place, and that you can easily refer to it when you need something and not do the same thing over and over again every time you sit down and paint. Let's talk a little bit more about the process. This has to do more with kind of your state of mind and how I feel about the learning journey and the whole process of, you know, painting in watercolors, discovering the medium. So the first thing I would recommend is to try as many different teachers and styles as your time and budget allows. There are nowadays great platforms online. It's a great place to find new styles, new artists. So of course you have places like YouTube, and YouTube is amazing. I mean, I'm here. It's free. It's great. I found so many amazing people through YouTube. However, it can also be a real, rabbit hole and time sucker. And sometimes it takes a while until you find a quality video that shows what you want to see. So YouTube is a good place to start, but if you're looking for something specific and you feel like you're falling a bit in a rabbit hole, you might consider trying out different platforms. There are different websites that offer a lot of courses from different instructors, and I will list some below. Every website has its strengths and weaknesses and offers something different. So I just recommend, try. If you're not sure, try one platform for 1 month and then switch to a different for another month until you find the right fit for you, or until you feel like you got everything you could from that. Learn from as many people as you can, even if they don't necessarily use the same medium even that you're using or the same style, because sometimes there are those real gems and people have a certain approach, a certain philosophy to painting that might just give you that push in the right direction on your path, even if they don't, for me, exactly paint loosely with watercolors. And so I really encourage you, if you find someone that you resonate with, that something about their process speaks to you, even if, let's say, they're painting abstract in acrylics and you like to paint landscapes in watercolors, you might find something there. Don't just focus on exactly what you want to learn, because not only you might miss out on things, but if you want to paint something that is unique, that is authentic, that is more you, I think it'll take you longer if you're just following the people who are doing, exactly kind of what you want to do in that square. It feels like everything has already been done. There is nothing new under the sun. So I really feel that inspiration, that something new can only come from broadening your horizons. And I really feel that had I only focused on, painting loosely with watercolors and just following a few of, the masters of that, I would never have found my style and what I really like. So yeah, that's my advice about that. Okay, the next tip I want to say is, I'm going to say it short and to the point, and again, with the emphasis that I greatly appreciate and understand the importance of learning from other people's experience. But when it comes to painting, take everything that anyone tells you with the understanding that it might not work for you. Listen, learn, try, and then decide if you want to keep this or not. And there is nothing wrong with doing things differently from your favorite, most admired artist. It's okay. The next thing I wish I knew when I started painting is that every single part of the process of painting, with the exception of actually, putting something on the paper, is optional. I really encourage you, if you are sitting down to paint, if you're following a certain process that you learned from someone, that, first you have to do some sort of preparation, you have to find a good reference photo, you have to do a sketch, you have to mix the colors like this, you have to. If you don't enjoy that part, if it feels more like something that is keeping you from getting to the good part, try letting it go. See what happens. For me, there were a lot of such things. There were many parts of the process that I kept seeing, that I kept learning from other experienced artists, that I just didn't enjoy. I didn't want to do them, and it just kind of led to frustration and led to me not painting as much as I should have or could have. You will hear people saying, I always start with a sketch, you should always start with a sketch. I never start with a sketch. You should never start with a sketch if you want to do this and that. Again, listen, understand why someone is doing something, and then try it your way and see what happens. And I found that I like to start with a sketch, but I don't sketch with a pencil. I sketch with pastels. And there are many other examples. I don't like using reference photos. I like to paint from my imagination, and so on and so forth. So find a process that is fun and enjoyable to you from start to finish, and go with that. Because what are we doing here if this is about making something, enjoying the process, and hopefully loving the result? But I really feel that going with a process that you love will raise the chances that you create something you love. The next thing I want to talk about, and this might be a little bit more kind of up in the air and less specific, but I wish I knew and kind of had the more of like a critical eye, or like knowing where to put my finger on it with this point. So every artist that I have ever kind of seen painting or teaching takes liberties and makes artistic choices to create a more successful painting in the techniques that they use, in the color choices that they make, with creating, more atmospherical paintings. And I think that sometimes is really the key to seeing what is particularly attractive in their artwork. And this is allowed. This is not cheating. And I hope you will keep that in mind, especially if you like to paint real things, nature, flowers, still life, cityscapes, landscapes, all those things. Keep in mind that most artists, I want to say all artists, unless they're doing some hyper realism where they don't allow themselves to kind of bring any interpretation into their painting, but then it's basically like a photo. We're not photographers, we're artists. Leave out what you don't like, keep in what you like, and use those tricks. And again, they can be tricks of perspective, they can be tricks of omission, like just, leaving out something that doesn't look really good, something that is distracting, using colors in certain ways, so choosing complementary colors to really make a place look atmospherical, the colors pop. Or, you have now artists, this is like super popular now, like these great European cityscapes where everything is like very, very atmospherical and gray, and then you have like those pops of bright red and orange. It's not because those artists were lucky to stand on a street in Paris exactly where the rain was coming down and everything was exactly how they painted it. No. It could have been a really horrible day, and they just used strategies and took liberties to make a successful painting. So keep that in mind and watch out for those things as you're learning. See where they kind of diverge from, this is what I saw and this is what I painted. The next thing I want to talk about is, I think it's a big theme whenever we discuss any, just social media and interaction, and basically every occasion where you have to come in contact with other people. And that is to ignore the noise. Ignore people saying painting still life shows skill, and that's real art. And then putting blobs of paint on a canvas or paper and painting abstract, that's not art. A 3-year-old could do that. Don't listen to that noise. Do what you love. There is room for everyone. There are all kinds of artworks out there. You can't make something that everyone loves. You will never make something that everyone loves. Not everyone is going to get what you're doing, and that's okay. I don't say this lightly. It can be very frustrating if, let's say, you're surrounded by people who don't have any passion for art, or if they do, they have a passion for a different kind of art. And that could be also people, you know, in your home, in your family, people that you love and love you, but they just don't get that part of you. And it's okay, because as long as you're not hurting anyone, you really need to do what you want to do, even if other people don't get it. There is art that is made to provoke, that is made to, you know, shine a light on something that is going on in the world, protest, or, you know, speak your voice or someone's voice. And then there is art that is, you can call it art, you can call it whatever you want. It could be just a bunch of pretty colors on paper that made the person who painted them happy. There is room for all of it. Some might belong in a great museum, and then others will hang in your home or someone else's home and make them happy. And, you know, if you want to rate yourself, put yourself on some scale, compare yourself to others, that's usually a recipe for disaster. I myself make that mistake very, very often, but there are people out there who will get what you're doing, who will like it, and, you know, if not, then I guess it's about kind of setting your goals. If you want to make art that you can sell in a gallery, sure, maybe you need to do something different than you're doing. But if you just want to come into your painting space, sit down, paint something pretty, then put it in a frame and enjoy it. It doesn't really matter what anyone else says. Yeah, if it makes you feel good, if you like it, that's all that matters, really. Okay, my last tip is this is a simple one, quick one, but I think many people fall here, and this kind of hinders their progress. Watch less, do more. Learn less, paint more. If you're learning, if you're taking courses, make sure you're also painting. Don't be just passively watching. Sure, there are times for that too, and there are times where, you know, it's easier. It's easier to sit and watch someone else do the work. But I can promise you, there are not a lot of things I can promise you about your journey, but this one, I can promise you this one, if you won't paint, you won't get to where you want to get. There are hours and hours of painting, and at some point there has to be, if you want to get to a place where you're painting something different, something that is you, at some point you have to take some decisions. You have to show some independence and let go of those crutches of following someone else's instructions. This is not easy. If you're happy where you are, that's all that matters, really. But if you feel like you want something more, like you want to create something that is a bit different, or you're painting things that don't really feel like you're still feeling like you're just copying other people's work, that also has a place, and that is, I would say, pretty much an essential step in everyone's journey. At some point you start from copying other people, from learning from other people, but make sure you're consistently painting and not just watching someone else paint. You will never get the same knowledge from watching. You have to do. You have to paint. And there's no way around it. There's no magic formula. You just have to paint again and again, over and over, for days and months and years. At least that has been my experience. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful, that you got some tips, that it made you feel a bit more confident on what you want to do, where you want to go. Let me know in the comments if there's something else you would add to my tips, and I will see you soon in another video. Take care. Bye bye.